All right, guys, welcome back to the WRPF podcast. I'm your host, Alex Uslar, episode 14. I got my boy, Albert Alvarado. All right, if you guys don't know who Al is, he is the head of drug testing, the drug testing chairman for the WRPF. He is a meat director. He is a business owner. He is an all-around very cool guy. And he is also one of the first guys or people I'm going to interview that I don't have to have open powerlifting open for. All right. Al is like me. We're like, like we love the sport. We do business. We lift a little bit, but we don't need to open that tuck stats. All right. Those are all the other guys that I have on where we talk about these crazy dots and their escalation of performances. We don't have to go into all that, right, Al?
Nope, I'm good with passing that part.
Cool. So we'll just talk about our love for the sport, what we do for the sport, what your current position is at the WRPF, and more than anything, let everyone get to know you little by little. We're having all the staff of the WRPF on the podcast, so you guys know the people who are behind the scenes. And Al is someone who has been doing a ton behind the scenes over the last 6 months for us to try to rapidly grow the drug tested division for all of you. It's something that you guys wanted to see, and you wanted to see more emphasis put on it, and they have been busting butt behind the scenes, and I'm personally excited to hear a lot of the new things going on. But before we get into that, let's get into who's Albert Alvarado. Al, talk to me about kind of your history, what got you into the sport of powerlifting before we get to present day.
Yeah, so I got into powerlifting like in 2015. Before that, I was just like a normal, casual, commercial gym lifter. Walk in, decide at that point what I was going to do that day, whether it was going to be, biceps and, biceps back or whatever split I was going to do. But in 2015, I went to the Arnold with a buddy just to go kind of, check everything out. First time there. And I came across, powerlifting and powerlifters and the animal cage and all that stuff. And it sparked an interest there. And I kind of just did more research on things and looked into it and stumbled across, at that time, it was Dr. Mike Zordos's DUP, programming and periodization and all that stuff. So I just kind of took that and did my first meet at the end of 2015 in Kentucky. And then just fell in love with the sport, man. Fell in love with the sport at that point and, just carried that through, did more meets after that, became a ref. Became a ref in 2018 because I wanted to do more with the sport. That's just, I figured I can compete all day long, but I wanted to do more and kind of help out where I can. So I did that in 2018. And then there was only one meet in St. Louis where the federation that I was competing in, there was only one meet in St. Louis a year. And that was that meet director had talked about stepping down and just leaving and kind of left a void there because I knew how much I love the sport here in St. Louis. And a lot of lifters, if that meet sold out, we'd have to go to Kansas City, we'd have to go to Chicago, we'd have to go somewhere else to compete at that time. So I just made the jump and said, you know what, like I'm going to just invest and start, hosting meets out here. And I had the backing from a lot of people around here in the area. So ended up doing that and being a meet director in 2019. I did like 4 meets in 2019 here in St. Louis. And then 2020, started taking my show on the road, I guess. There was more demand for meets out in other areas of the Midwest. And I had the equipment. I had enough equipment and I had the people to take with me. And so we ended up covering 5 or 6 states in the Midwest, all the way from North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Indiana, parts of the Southern Illinois, obviously Missouri. And just we're hosting meets where it was needed out there. And it just grew. So then, I did that. There's COVID, obviously. So we were still during COVID, that whole thing, gyms were shutting down, but we were hosting meets in states that were open. South Dakota was open, Nebraska, things like that. So then at that point, I wanted to kind of dial it back because the travel does take it out of you. When you're traveling, running meets, and you're driving 12 hours with a trailer one way, to put on a meet, and all that takes a big toll out of you. And plus I have kids, and one of my kids, my daughter, she was doing soccer, travel soccer, so then that started taking up time, so dialed it back a little bit. And then it really kind of just started doing meets in Missouri. So we went from ultimately in 2019 doing one meet a year in Missouri to now I think we have about, in St. Louis specifically, and now we have about 8 meets this year.
Wow.
Here in St. Louis. So grew the state, and definitely like trying to grow the Midwest. And my whole thing was just trying to grow, but also put a product out there that is just not something different, not just a simple banner and platform type of meet. Like we have that everywhere, but like doing a production, doing, having a pro style setup for the local level lifter to make them feel, that we do appreciate what they, every lifter and what they bring to the table. So we started, doing the lights, we started doing the truck systems, the TVs everywhere, the live stream. When COVID hit in 2020, I started doing live streams because families couldn't travel. Families couldn't come and see their lifters because whether it was the travel ban or the occupancy limits in certain gyms or certain states that allowed that. So we started live streaming it, and the feedback that we got from lifters and from families of lifters thanking, because they wanted to see their loved one compete and they can't go. So we just started doing live streams and really kind of incorporating that into the meets and trying to perfect that in a way that I could. So.
Well, it seems like from the beginning, your trajectory of growth was pretty quickly. What was your background before getting into powerlifting, like professionally, that honestly had you, and me knowing you personally and seeing what you've done, ahead of the game and ahead of the steps from a professional aspect and everything that you were doing than a lot of people who try to just become a meet director? For a lot of meet directors, there's a massive learning curve. And from the beginning, from what I've seen, the product that you're putting out, it was a pretty great product early on.
Yeah. What has prepared me for this stuff and beforehand? I mean, honestly, dude, I'm just, I'm an everyday guy. Like I work a corporate job, 8 to 5. I've been in, I worked for hotels for years, 6, 7 years. And then from hotels, I made the transition to my current job, which is a car rental company, working at the corporate headquarters out here in St. Louis. And I love, like, my job is basically analyzing reports, analyzing trends and things like that, and making basically pricing decisions to optimize revenue. And it just, that, you don't think that has a correlation to kind of what you're doing with powerlifting, but like all about the planning and looking back and understanding what was good, what was bad, and how to change that. And I did a lot of that with powerlifting and analyzing, okay, what worked, what didn't work, and what's working now that we can incorporate and kind of make it my own. Plus, I'm a tech nerd too. So like, gaming and Twitch during COVID, like Twitch and gaming was like started to blow up because people were at home live streaming their games and whatever and watching live streams. So like just incorporating that technology to powerlifting and meets, and how can we make that, can we integrate the two? So that's kind of just really my background. I'm a normal everyday guy. I'm not a huge power lifter. Like, you said, don't open powerlifting. I mean, my numbers, they're nothing to brag about, but I just love the sport, and I wanted to kind of bring it to, help bring it to a different level in any way that I can. And whether that was not just being a lifter, but also just being a ref, spotting and loading, hosting meets. I started Squat to Depth Apparel, which is my apparel company. I started that in 2017 because I didn't want to fund my hobby through my family money. That's through my corporate job, and take away from my family to go through, to support this hobby of mine. But so I started Squat to Depth Apparel, and I did that in 2017, and it really took off in the beginning of 2018. And again, I tell everybody this, thanks to Matt over at Pioneer. That was when in February he started the tribute idea, the tribute meet being tossed around. And I had made, a small donation of what I could. I had just started. I was like 4 months into my apparel company, getting a lot of local level support. And I gave a little bit of what I could, and Matt just made one post of my apparel and that we're supporting and to support us. And literally my Instagram blew up, my page views blew up. And it kind of just took off from there.
That's awesome. Huge shout out to Matt. Matt is awesome, all around great guy. But that's kind of the picture that I had seen, and something that I think is very cool and very different than a lot of people, such as myself and a lot of people involved in the sport, is powerlifting is, it kind of has the background of being like, an underground kind of thing. And it's becoming less and less so. It's becoming very mainstream. I see it firsthand in my gym, but this is a very young generation of, 17, 18, 19-year-old guys. But there's not a whole lot of people involved in the sport that have a corporate background and an organized kind of background like that. So I think that's very cool and something very different you bring to the sport, something different than myself and many other gym owners and business owners that I know that are just entrepreneurs that kind of went out and did things. You have that regular corporate structure, that regular corporate day-to-day, and you're a business owner on top of that. So you're doing double thing, and your dad, you're doing double. But I think that's very cool, and it brings a very different level of organization, which when we start getting into the drug tested things, I can only imagine how much that helps with different systems and things like that. So then on top of that, you said the tech thing, like me, man, it took me forever to figure out how to do a damn podcast. Like that's not my strength, but that kind of thing so much helps your brand and also helps to your meat in the sport, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It does. It really does. So I made the transition pretty easy for that.
That's very cool. So then getting into 2020, 2021, being a meet director, running all those multiple events, like you said, then kind of deciding to take a step back as you had the team, travel a little bit less. What, you're obviously someone who you like to stay busy. You like to do different things beyond just your own job, just as myself. So where does that get to, you then making transitions, getting involved in the drug testing aspect of the things? I'm assuming a lot of your meets in the St. Louis area were already drug tested with previous federations, and there was a big desire and a need for that. Yeah.
Yeah. So through the years, I've kind of witnessed the change in everybody going from non-tested, because that was really the only option of meets, to drug tested. And it started off real small, and then all of a sudden there's just a boom in between where a lot of these lifters are now competing drug tested, just because there wasn't an option for that, or a good structure or strong option for drug tested meets. So we saw that here, and it's region specific. I've noticed, like, it is region specific, but here in the Midwest, like, the drug tested scene just kind of blew up. There was not a strong presence from other feds in the drug testing until about 2019, 2020, or 2020, I would say, 2021. And then, so like predominantly a lot of our meets here, I do split meets, like I'll do drug tested and non-tested, but we're kind of more heavy now on the drug tested side, just because that's what the demand is out here. We're not seeing a lot of non-tested meets. Non-tested meets aren't selling out here in the Midwest, just from observation. There's certain pockets of areas, like Chicago always have a strong non-tested arena there, but everywhere else around that, it's really more of a drug tested, at least for the mainstream feds that are up there.
Yeah, very cool. And it's looking historically, me knowing in Florida and what it's been like before the 24-hour deadlift bar federation started allowing drug tested divisions. Those were always the untested side of things. Whether you were a lifter who takes performance enhancement drugs or not, if you wanted to compete on a deadlift bar or what was locally available to you, you did that. That doesn't necessarily label you as an untested lifter or a steroid user or whatever, but that's what it was. Because then the other option is a 2-hour weigh-in, deadlift or a stiff bar, and it's 100% drug-free to be involved in that federation at all. But what I know personally is Florida had the presence for it, but it was a snooze fest. It was so boring. Literally no music at all in the meets. Most of their meets were like masters meets, right? All the old farts in Florida who powerlifted everywhere around and then came down to Florida. Of course, they wanted to do a USAPL Masters meet, and I coached Masters athletes and I went to them, and that was just why there was no attraction to that whatsoever. No one really wanted to go towards that till recent years when other people get involved in those roles. Like myself and you were both, although we're involved in the WRPF, we're also involved in USAPL, and we run USAPL meets also. But that's kind of what there wasn't a lot of that availability. So I think that is what set up, federations like the WRPF, who have those other options as far as equipment goes and environment goes, for a lot of success with the drug testing side of things to really, really blow up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it just carried, and now look at it. I mean, just with the federation alone, I mean, I have some stats real quick just for our federation alone. I mean, from the years of 2020 to 2022, there was 9 drug tested meets in that 3-year span with the WRPF, and there's only 23 drug tests that were given throughout that 2 or 3 year span there. From when I took over in February 2023 till now, we've had 37 drug tested meets.
Whoa.
We've had 160 drug tests given at those meets. So that's like a 311% jump right there just in meets alone, and a 600% jump in drug tests that were administered compared to that 3-year span. So that just shows just us in general, as not just the sport, but as our federation as well, is just kind of just taking off in the drug tested scene, and that's where it is right now. I mean, you want to look at markets and you want to look at marketability. I mean, it's the drug tested scene. That's where the local lifters are at right now.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. And we'll obviously start getting into shortly a lot of your guys' questions that you have regarding the drug tested side of things. Al started by giving you some of those stats. Before we dive into the specific questions, you want to give us a little information on what has changed in these last 5 months, how the kind of drug testing procedure works, and potentially any vision that you guys have going forward for the drug tested side of things.
Yeah, so I mean, with the drug test, kind of how it started was, I mean, there was not really an organized procedure before. It was just, the drug testing side. So my first goal coming in here was wanting to make sure that there's an organized procedure and process in place. That's starting with the rule book, making sure that everything that needs to be in the rule book is in there, making sure that everybody is on board, that whether a lifter is competing in California or competing in Florida or the Midwest, that they're going through the same exact process from our federation with the drug test, whether it's from the filling out the paperwork to how the referees are handling the drug test, how they're sealed in front of the lifter, things like that. Like, that process needs to be uniform and streamlined, because I do not personally, as the drug testing chairman, I don't want any holes in our drug testing game to be questioned. So the first thing was being training, development of our referees and our meet directors, and having them understand the process that we have to go through to make sure that everything is streamlined and done perfectly. So that was like the first the first goal. And we're doing a hell of a job right now. Our meet directors are definitely using the tools that they have to be able to make sure that they're getting those drug tests done correctly. The other part, like the second phase of that, which we're kind of heading into now, is making sure that everything on the banned substance list is tested for. There's federations out there that have a banned substance list that they're not actually testing what's on that banned substance list. And that doesn't sit well with me, because it's something that we need to, if we say we're going to test for it, we need to test for it.
Agreed.
Like, there's none of this, oh yeah, those are banned, and we're only going to test for certain things. So that's another change that's implemented now with the WRPF, is where testing for things are actually said they're going to be tested for. It's a
Speak
cost
on that
for
really
us.
quick. I remember I saw when you mentioned that, and all the support of all of us meet directors with something like that. The fact of the matter is it incurs a higher cost, and it incurs a higher cost on the meet director, and on the federation and everything all combined. So it's like, that's very straightforward, that there's no desire to cut any corners, and to make it as strict as possible and ensure that people aren't slipping between the cracks, because you hear about that all the time, of people, which we'll get into later, competing in drug tested, not being drug free, whatever it is. It's like, there's a place for everyone. So don't go down that road. And I think that's a fantastic choice, but obviously with it comes greater expense.
Absolutely. It is going to cost more, but that's something, as you said, was well received between the meet directors and the federation and the referees, that when we mentioned that. Because it's something we believe in. Like, we want to make sure that we're trusted in our community. That's something that wasn't always there before. And we want to make sure that when we, this new team that came in, we just want to make sure that everything's done right and legitimate as we can make it. So with the drug testing, since that's where the focus, like, it seems to be that there's a lot more focus on drug testing these days across the entire sport. We want to make sure that we're doing it right.
Yeah, I love that. So that's kind of the current phase of where you guys are at in developing that further testing, right?
Yep, absolutely. So that's the second phase that we're heading into. And down the line, there's going to be a third phase. And my long-term goal is out of contest testing. That's the only hole in the game really in drug testing. We could have the in-meat testing and all that, but there's other strong drug testers federations that do out of contest testing, and I think that's something that we can participate in. I'm still gathering the info for it. It's still in the research process of doing that, but that's my long-term goal, is making sure that we can participate in some out of contest testing.
I love it. I mean, take away any of the term powerlifting, but if you look at other sports
Mm-hmm.
that are in the Olympics, combat sports, Olympic weightlifting, everything, all those sports have that, and it helps add that security, that legitimacy to ensure that people are playing by the rules. And again, we're a federation where it's like you have options, so there's no reason to not play by the rules, but we want to ensure that everyone feels comfortable and safe and ensured that it is a level playing field.
Absolutely. Yep.
So I think that's a good kind of segue to get into our questions and our Q&As and different things that people wanted to hear about and hear us talk about. First one being, will there be more bigger qualifier meets for drug testing? An example being something like the American Pro or the Ghost Clash.
Yeah, so I mean, the American Pro, this is the first year that they're enacting drug testing, and that thing sold out, I think, fast. That's sold out. I'm not sure the exact time frame it sold out, but I remember hearing it sold out pretty quick. And that's the plan going forward. I mean, we do want that. There's going to be some meets that just won't. It's just going to be non-tested specific. But essentially, yes, the goal down the line is to add drug testing to a lot of address a drug testing side to the pro league and the pro meets that we're going to do.
Yes, and not to speak too much on this because this is something the Federation is going to release and we'll have separate episodes to talk about, but Ashley Contorno talked about it briefly on the episode that she was previously on, and Garrett as well, that bringing different levels of meets that climb up to get to a pro meet, that you don't just jump, from doing a local level open powerlifting as you're going to be your qualifier, but there's these steps and these standards of a regional level, a national level, whatever that may be, to then get you to a pro level. And I think a lot of the purpose behind that is, because it is difficult. We do use open powerlifting for a lot of our qualifications, and not to say that's not going to be, and it's going to become obsolete, but you could have done it in a backyard meet, in a pile of dirt. You never know where it's done. So there's a lot of different things like that I know that you guys have in the works. I've heard little teases of it, and I'm sure everyone's excited to hear a lot more about that down the line.
It's coming, man. The teaser, I just saw the video for it that they're going to drop. I'm thinking this week or maybe in the next day or two, but the teaser is awesome, dude. Like, it's just, it kind of sets the tone for what this structure is going to be for our meets. And it's for both tested and non-tested. That's the beautiful thing about it. And then it's just going to kind of give every single lifter something to strive for. I think that's something that's been missing in our federation and other federations besides the USAPL. Let's say the USAPL's structure at the local level is really the gold standard right now. And I think we have something that can hit that and kind of surpass it as well.
I agree. And it's, every other federations besides the USAPL, when you look at nationals, it's never been something that's been a huge desire for a lot of people. And I think that's because just historically, there hasn't been emphasis in it from certain federations, just how it was gone about. And I think that should ultimately be, not everyone's goal needs to be compete at the Ghost Clash. The Ghost Clash is 2 days, one platform, limited availability. Don't just set your sights on something like that, because there's a lot of people with their sights set on it. Something like a nationals, which you have to work towards, and it's going to be an enhanced experience. Look at USAPL nationals. I believe it sells out at 12 or 1,300 lifters. The Ghost Clash sells out at about 150. sells out at 1/10 of that, so 10 times the amount of people can compete at a national level meet. So
and what's the perk, right? What's the perk of competing at now? Why would I compete at nationals? So we throwing some stuff in there that's actually going to incentivize you to want to compete at nationals, not just for national records, because we already know, you can't set national records right now besides at a nationals meet. But what's the perk, to compete in nationals? And there's some things in the works right now that we're going to implement that's going to want people to compete at nationals and want to win their weight class and want to win the meet itself. So.
I love it. And I'm super excited and know already this year's nationals, we have a massive shift, a massive change, massive amount of lifters. We're all going to be out there with the exception of Ashley. I'm super excited for it. I just booked my hotel. So continuing with that, I think this next question, nationals this year currently has this. A lot of our meets currently have this, and I'm also curious what the plan is for this. Would meets continue to have drug tested and non-tested lifters in the same meet, or will they be split up? And if so, how?
Yeah, so that's kind of a twofold question, because there are going to be certain levels of meets that will be separate. Just have a drug tested day and a non-tested day. But there is going to be, from what I'm hearing, just some ideas thrown out. And, as you know, I'm the co-meet director for the showdown that we're working on. But there's, things of trying to mix both and, just giving that option to the lifter. So it's going to be, depending on the structure and the level of meet, there will be either going to be split or some will be kind of intertwined.
So as of right now, the rules are they are allowed to be mixed, drug tested and non-tested, essentially flights or whatever it may be in the same meet. It doesn't necessarily need to be split. One day is drug tested, one day is not drug tested.
Correct. Currently, this second, but when the new rule book drops, it's specific. We have to have it on separate days or separate sessions.
Separate sessions. Yeah. So as of for example, right now it can be, but going forward, the way, if you guys don't know what a separate session means, essentially it's the same day, but you may begin either at 9 a.m. or you may begin at 2 or 3 p.m. Split sessions. So morning may be all the tested lifters, afternoon may be all the untested lifters. There may be meets that you do that are fully tested meets, that the whole weekend is all drug tested, but the morning is tested, afternoon is tested as well. That's just to be able to get more lifters in on a single day in a quicker time span to get you guys in and out. I'm sure you guys have heard us talking a lot about sessions, hearing all the talk of sessions. This is something that the USAPL, the IPF have been implementing for years. It's nothing that a lot of us haven't seen if we've been involved in these meets. It is something that a lot of you lifters may not be exposed or experienced with because you weren't involved in those other federations. And historically, we and other federations with 24-hour weigh-ins, deadlift bars didn't do it. But you're going to be seeing a lot more of it. The Ghost Clash this year, only the amateur day will have sessions. And again, the goal of that was to be able to have more lifters experience and compete in this meet on the same day. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, and to touch on that again, with the sessions, there's, I mentioned earlier, there's certain regions that can fill up drug tested meets, no problem. But the non-tested meets don't fill. So at the local level, we want to make sure that our meet directors have the flexibility to be able to create meets how they can fill them, or what their regional demands are, what their local demands are. I might do day one all drug tested, but if I only have 15 or 20 lifters that are non-tested, then I might as well, if I'm going to do a day two, I'll do one session non-tested on day two and another drug tested session in the afternoon. So there's a lot of flexibility and things to kind of do it. A lot of meet directors right now are separating by sessions or by days of what their drug tested and non-tested meets are still, even though the old rule is in place. A lot of them are kind of in that separation because it does matter to drug tested lifters what the meet says on open powerlifting, believe it or not. A lot of lifters, they don't want to be joined with a meet that doesn't say it's non-test, or that doesn't say it's drug tested. So that, lifters care about that. They care about what they compete in, what it's labeled as, and what is labeled on their record as well. They want it to say drug tested.
I love it. And this is obviously all listening to your guys' feedback, hearing these things and figuring out how to implement them as quickly as possible.
Yep.
So moving on to the next question. I don't know if you have an answer for this, if you know the specific meat director in that region or how far that way that is from you. I don't really know my geography, so I don't know what is on a map. For all I know, you could be in this state or right next to it. Drug tested meats in Colorado soon. Do you know if there's any plans for that area, that region?
Yes. So I helped out at a meet a couple months ago in Denver with Jacob Kincaid. He's the meat director out there, and he's also doing Wyoming. There are plans to do drug tested meats out there. I saw that, the day one I was there, I knew there was an immediate need for drug testing meats. The demand is out there. A lot of the lifters do want that. The other thing is Jacob is spread thin. I mean, he does meats, but he's also, like I said, he lives in Wyoming, Wyoming to Colorado, there's a lot of space in between. He needs help. So like, if you are interested, if you're in the Colorado area and you want to be a referee, or you're interested, if you're a gym owner and you want to possibly look at the idea of hosting meets out in Colorado, like, let us know. We definitely could use the help out there in the Colorado area. There is demand for it. And Jacob's doing the best that he can. So I want to make sure that we get those meets out there. But yes, drug tested meets are coming to Colorado.
Love it. Next question. All right. Next question came off slightly sarcastic from whoever the person who asked it in the Q&A box. So I'm going to just rant at you for a second. All right. And hopefully, if anyone listening is one of the people who falls in this category, you check yourself. All right. The person asked, what's the point of having a drug tested federation when everyone is doping anyway? Okay. First, looking at the federation of the WRPF, we have two options. We have options that are available in the exact same meet. I don't know if you have the statistic of how many failed tests we've had, but I'm hoping it's very, very low. 2. There you go. 2 out of the 100, over 100 tests that we've administered. So those 2 people are silly freaking geese. All right. Silly goose. You didn't need to do that. Okay. When you look at drug tested federation when everyone is doping, you can look at something at the Olympics or this, that, and the other when there's a ton on the line. If you're considering competing in the WRPF and you're doping, there's a place for you. All right. You can still come compete here, but don't waste, the resources and fail a drug test or think you're rolling the dice and you're going to miss it. Okay. But again, we're not strictly a drug tested federation, so this question doesn't really kind of apply. There's a home for everyone, and don't be that silly goose, right?
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. You will get caught. I promise you.
And especially as you guys already heard Al mention all the different things planned, you're going to be essentially in a testing pool. So you're submitting yourself to that. You have nothing to win or nothing to lose by doing this. You're not someone in the Olympics trying to win a medal and represent your country and, go watch Icarus, that kind of stuff. So moving on. Are peptides such as BPC 157 on the banned list?
So peptides are not on the banned substance list, but there's a caveat to that because there are peptides out there that can increase your testosterone or increase your hormonal levels. The trick with that is if anything does increase or adjust your hormone levels, there's a thing called the TE ratio that we do test for, and it's 4-to-1 is the cutoff and that's listed in the rule book. If anything adjusts those levels and your level goes over that 4-to-1, it will come up as a positive test. So although, peptides aren't on the banned substance list per se, there are some out there that have been proven to adjust your hormone level, your testosterone level or whatever. And if that pops over 4-to-1, that's going to come up on the test.
Got it.
So a lot of people don't know that. They think, oh, well, it's not on here. Well, but there is a thing called the TE ratio. And even those like pro hormones or whatever, those supplements that you get at GNC to help your testosterone boost, or it's a natural testosterone booster or whatever, that stuff that will push your TE level up, and then that's what's gonna get you popped.
And again, at the end of the day, guys, there's an option for that. If you're on the fence, if you're unsure, and if you're wanting to experiment with things like that, just go the other route to avoid any of those possible complications. or go speak to TRT doctor if you're so worried about your test levels, right?
Yep.
Don't try to look for those unfair advantages where there's people that are trying to play on a fair playing field, right?
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to more specific things like prescription medication. If there's a prescription medication on the banned substance list.
So I would, and I get emails like this all the time. If you're not sure, I'm not a physician, first of all. You already heard my background. It's corporate business. I'm not a physician. If you are curious if a drug you are taking or prescribed drug you are taking is on the banned substance list, take it to your doctor. Take the list to your doctor and have them look it over. They know the exact ingredients and what is in, what compounds are in the prescription that you're taking, and have them look it over. I would definitely use your physician as your resource when it comes to, is this going to make a drug test go positive? If you have the items that are listed on the drug test, you know that if your TE ratio is over 4-1, it'll come up as a positive. Talk to your doctor, ask them, because they've seen test results with people who have been taking this medication, so they know what way the needle moves on your blood test or your urine test. So use your doctor as a reference.
Got it. Next question we have. I have entered blank diagnosis or condition, whatever that may be. My doctor's prescribing me hormones to supplement and aid in this condition. Am I eligible to compete drug tested?
9 times out of 10, if it's a hormone induced type of condition or prescribed medication, you probably will not be able to compete drug tested. But again, talk to your doctor. They know, they'll know what those hormone levels are, how they move, and then they'll be able to tell you. But most of the time, if it's some type of condition or diagnosis where you have to get hormones prescribed to you, it's going to be a no-go.
And this next question leads into that same thing. Well, what if I go to my doctor and the doctor gives me a therapeutic use exemption?
So with TUEs, we don't recognize TUEs right now. Not saying that that's not going to be possible down the line, but right now where we're at in the sport, because we do offer non-tested and tested options, there is not a process for TUEs, and there won't be for at least for the near, at least this year. But again, I'm constantly doing research, constantly reading articles, and making sure that we're up to date on information. And just because we offer the non-tested side, TUEs just aren't recognized by a lot of federations that are doing both tested and non-tested. There's a big process that comes with that when it comes to having doctor reviews and physician panels and signing off and things like that, and the timeline of stuff. So again, it's not something that's off the table, but for the immediate future, no, there are no TUEs. Like a lot of people ask because they get TRT. They get the testosterone replacement therapy that's, their doctor prescribes, and they want to compete drug tested. You can't. It's still a hormone level, and we just don't offer those TUEs right now.
Got it. Moving on to the next question. If I take blank supplement such as XO Triple Explode pre-workout juice from the Lord, this is a brand if you guys haven't heard of it, will I fail a drug test?
Yeah, that's always a tricky one too, because you never know what's in those supplements, really. Sometimes, and we can really get down to the weeds of this, but I mean, essentially, look at the panel, look at the label of those, look at what's included, what the ingredients are. If you have doubt about something that's in there, do your research. There's a thing called Google. It's freaking fantastic. You put in the ingredient and it'll tell you exactly what's in it. It'll tell you what that chemical is, what that compound is, and you might even be able to find some research of if you put in that chemical and drug test, that'll tell you sometimes if it comes up. A good example of that is there's pre-workouts that have DMAA. That sometimes gets popped for amphetamine. That comes up positive as an amphetamine, and you'll get positive on a drug test. Those types of things. My little slogan with that is, when in doubt, leave it out. If you're in doubt that something in this label of a supplement that you want to take can be popped for a drug test, just leave it out. Don't do it. Just don't do it. Do more research. Look it up. Use the internet. Use peer-reviewed journals. Do what you can, but definitely, if you're not sure, don't take it.
And also nowadays, there's a lot of companies in the industry, right, that are recognized powerlifting, recognized drug testing sports, and they do third-party testing on the supplements to ensure that there's none of those banned ingredients. It's not the 90s anymore where they're sneaking D-ball into the pre-workouts, right?
Right.
Unless you're getting NO triple body muscle explode on the underground black web. So just keep it safe. Order from a reputable brand that has that third-party testing as well, that checks to ensure that there's none of that in there, right?
Yeah, do your research, man. And don't take the supplement that your buddy gives you and says, "Oh, try this. This is good." Like if you're a tested lifter and you really care about keeping that label, do your research on the company. Do your research on the label of what's in there.
Agreed. So what does happen if someone fails a drug test?
So if you fail a drug test, it takes about a week or two to get the results, and then I get them. And if you fail a drug test, I will be in contact with you as a lifter and just let you know that the results came back positive. And for X amount, I'll show you the results of what specifically was what it came back as. You get two options at that point. You can either just submit and just be like, you know what, okay, and then you can no longer compete tested. And then if you ever want to compete in the WRPF non-tested, you have to pay a $500 fine. And then you would be allowed to compete in the non-tested side of WRPF. If you don't agree with the result of the test, which 9 times out of 10, most people don't agree with the result of the test and there's a fail. What will happen is you'll get the option. You'll get the option to submit a written appeal. You'll email me that you want to appeal. You'll have about 2 weeks to do so. At that point, you will basically, at your expense, pay for the sample that was given to be split and to get retested. And then we'll basically wait for the results on that. And then at that point, if it comes back positive or if the test comes back that you fail or you pass, then that next step, then we'll revert back. If you fail, then we go back to get the option again to basically compete non-tested with a $500 fine. But the split sample test, the appeal, that's going to be at your own expense.
Got it. Makes sense. So for the final question for the drug testing, do I need to order my own drug test for a meet? And how am I going to know if I'm going to be tested?
Yeah, so you do not need to order your own drug test. Basically what happens, that's going to be the meet director's job. It's based off of how many lifters they have competing in that meet. So for example, you have 60 lifters. We test the top 10% of lifters by dots. So that's going to be the top 6 lifters. So they'll have 6 tests ready to go by the end of that meet. So immediately when the last deadlift hits the floor, what the first thing we do is we look through the results and see who those top 10 lifters are. If you're in a 60 lifter meet, you have 40 men and 20 women. We're going to test 4 men and we're going to test 2 women to equal that 6. So it's based off of that.
Easy enough.
Yep.
So anything other drug test related? I feel like we covered all bases for the most part.
Yeah, that's pretty much the gist of everything, man. I'm really excited about the way our drug testing division is going, the direction it's going, and most importantly, the WRPF, man. This is exciting. There's a lot of work that's being done behind the scenes that a lot of lifters are going to be able to see in the coming days, I think, with the structures and kind of leading up to nationals, and then everything else. The 2024 year that's going to be the breakout year.
I couldn't agree more. Final question we'll just throw in that wasn't drug tested related that will kind of help close us out is people asking about big time money meets for drug testing, like the Ghost Clash / the Showdown meet. It's almost as if these people knew something was going on. Like Al already mentioned, the American Pro does have a drug testing option. They have a full drug tested pro day, an entire day devoted to it. They were able to do a 3-day meet weekend. Ghost Clash, I'm a little bit more limited. It's a 2-day meet. It's all untested. Someone mentioned the Showdown meet, a name that has been lightly been sprinkled around. Garrett teased it on the episode that he was on with me. You guys began teasing it on social media today. Without giving away too many details and spoiling any announcement, are there any things you want to touch on regarding that?
Yeah, so that's why we're all kind of here in the same space right now. Anna, the VP of the WRPF, she's here as well. And we are We just finished looking at a venue, as you can see on Garrett's story, and my story and Anna's story. We just finished looking at a venue that we're really, really excited about. The showdown is coming back. Into what capacity is we're still kind of working out the specifics and the details to it, but we're really excited about it. There is going to be, I can't fully say if not going to, I can tell you right now, it's not going to be a solely tested meet. It's not going to, but there is going to be some twist in there for those tested lifters, if that's the case, if that's what they want to do. So there is going to be something for the tested lifters. It's just not going to be a 100% drug tested meet. It will be a non-tested and option for drug tested as well.
Awesome. I love it. So safe to say you guys have heard it. Showdown is officially coming back. Venue might just be secured. And is it safe to say that it's going to be sometime in the summer of 2024?
I can tell you for facts right now, it will be in the summer of 2024. And I can tell you for a fact it will be in St. Louis, Missouri.
Boom. Now it's a St. Louis, Missouri showdown. No Kansas City showdown.
Right.
It's all the same thing to me. Again, like I said, I don't know left from right on a map. I just know it's not Miami. It's not Florida. I know how Florida is anywhere else. It's all Greek to me. So
I love it. It's right smack dab in the middle of the country, man. It's 4 hours away from Chicago, from Indianapolis, Kansas City. Go 4 hours anywhere. It's drivable. It's the airport access is easy, so you will not have a problem coming to the showdown. And it's cheap.
It's not Miami. Exactly.
It's not Miami.
Exactly. One of the many reasons why Ghost Clash is going to be a 3-day meet, because you pay 10 times for a venue than you would pay anywhere else. But I love it, Al. Awesome. So you guys heard it first. I'm super excited to hear details about the showdown. I'm super excited to be there and attend. A lot of big pro things happening in 2024 with the WRPF. You guys will hear that more on other episodes. You guys already know Ghost Clash filling up quickly. That's coming up. That's the first official 2024 pro meet for the WRPF. And sign us out, Al. Let everyone know where they can find you, where they can find your companies. What's next for Squat to Death Productions?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find all of my meets and just my company in general on Instagram at Squat to Death Promotions. And then you could also find me personally at barbell_L. You won't see a lot of lifting videos anymore, really. But you're going to see just myself, kind of what we're doing here with the WRPF from time to time, and my daughter's soccer, because that basically surrounds my life right now. So
I love it. Thanks so much for joining us, Al. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode and listening to all the very exciting things going on in the WRPF.
All right.